Most Venerable ท่านอาจารย์ทองสิริมังคโล of Chiang Mai, Thailand. And he has practiced intensive and daily meditation following the Mahasi Sayadaw tradition since January 2000. He keeps discipline in line with the Theravada Buddhist monastic code, including not touching money, owning only one set of robes, and he has taught intensive meditation in Thailand, Sri Lanka, USA, and Canada since 2003, and give online teachings via YouTube, both live and pre-recorded. He gives the Dhamma talk in both English and Thai to both intensive meditators. And by invitation to general public, he facilitated an online meditation site, meditation.sirimankalo.org, with group meditation and individual video-based meditation courses, and answer questions in regular live broadcast via YouTube and audio streaming. He studied Sanskrit, Pali, and Indian religion at McMaster University and University of Toronto. Formal Thai Dhamma, Abhidhamma, and Pali study at Wat Phra That Si Jom Thong, Chiang Mai as well. And also he teach Pali classes to advanced meditators from time to time. So now he is the president of Sri Mankalo International, a non-profit organization that maintains the website srimankalo.org and Facebook as well. So now he is here already. So may I pay respect to ท่านอาจารย์ยุตธรรมโม. Okay. Okay, ท่านอาจารย์. So today the topic is Q&A on mindfulness practice. So if anyone has questions about mindfulness practice, you can ask by press right hand up, and I will let you to ask ท่านอาจารย์ยุตธรรมโม. So please everyone, if you have questions, so you can ask. Okay. Limunchin.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Maybe I can say a few words before.
Okay, please wait for a moment. Okay. นิมนต์ครับอาจารย์. Okay, please พระอาจารย์ยุตธรรมโม.
If someone has a question, go ahead. Does someone already have a question?
Not really, Ajahn. You please go ahead first. Kindly go ahead.
No, I was just going to fill time. If you have a question already, go ahead.
Not really, Ajahn. I was just thinking, lay people for us, we sometimes think that we couldn't practice as good as the monks, the Sangha members, because we are not renunciants. We feel like there's something lacking in us, insufficient, incomplete, because we have not renounced, and we practice hard, and we feel there is some improvements, transformation in ourselves, in our mind, the development, more calm, more focused, and the mind, the purity of the mind. We can sense that a lot of things that we used to feel and affected by emotions now is lacking. But somehow we have this kind of a distracting mind in us that, maybe I could not go further because I have not renounced. Could you please kindly enlighten me on that, on maybe for all my friends here? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, you may be aware that there are monks who are not very good at focusing their mind either and have distracted minds. The Buddhist ordination is a vehicle. So you have a different kind of vehicle. We all have our circumstance. Not all lay people have the same circumstance. Someone who is very rich will have a different circumstance from someone who is very someone who has a family will be in a different situation.
Sure. Please issues.
Hajan, I'm sorry, so sorry. So could you please unmute microphone? I'm not sure what happened.
Okay.
Okay. So could you speak up, Hajan? I'm so sorry.
Am I too quiet?
Yes. Thank you.
I don't know how to be louder. Is that better?
Yeah. Okay. That's great.
Speak into the microphone. Loud enough? Okay, thank you. So I don't know what you heard or didn't hear. I was saying how monks and lay people have different situations. So a rich lay person is going to have a different situation from a poor lay person. Someone with family is going to have a different situation from someone without family. But the monastic structure is a vehicle that gives you the opportunity to structure your life in a very pure and beneficial way if you choose to use it. Now, some people own very powerful vehicles, powerful cars, and they just wipe them with a cloth. No, they don't actually drive them anywhere. Monastic life can be like that. Just because you live as a Buddhist monastic doesn't mean you're actually taking advantage of it. You're actually using the vehicle for what it was designed. So, but the question of whether a lay person can compete, let's say, with a monk in terms of their mental development, all other things being equal, they can't compete. So for any given individual, ordination will absolutely improve their potential to practice. If a lay person is dedicated and committed and intent upon cultivation and development in the Buddha's teaching, becoming a monk will be better for them, will help them to do that, will allow them to practice on a level that they were not able to as a layperson. And that being said, for some people, it's not necessary. They don't need the vehicle. A layperson can become an arahant. There are many examples of this, and more examples of lay people who became anagami and stayed as lay people. So if you are thinking about renouncing and ordaining, it's important that you see it for what it is. You understand that it's a vehicle for that purpose. And you understand how it is a vehicle for that purpose, why it works. Understand the ethical precepts that you take on, understand the livelihood that you take on, research and study it, and understand it. And absolutely go for it. If it's something that you are in a position to undertake, and if you are inclined to use it for what it was meant for, it will benefit you. But absolutely anyone will tell you it's not necessary. It's just a nicer, more comfortable, faster vehicle. I mean, it's quite uncomfortable, of course, to be a monk if you're following the precepts, but it's comfortable for your practice, for your cultivation of wholesome mind states. If you are intent upon that, it gives you a very good opportunity, because you don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about clothing or shelter. If you are in a monastic situation that allows you to live the monastic life as it was presented or constructed by the Buddha, it provides an incredible opportunity to cultivate your mind without having to worry about so many of the things that lay people have to be engaged in. Your duties become very few. You don't have duties to society in the same way. Your needs are reduced. Your desires are cut off. If you stop using money, if you stop keeping food and cooking food, if you stop wearing anything but a simple robe, and if you keep the general livelihood of a monastic, you don't have the opportunity to engage in all the sensuality that ordinary people do. I think the basic answer is that yes, becoming a monastic is to your benefit. It will always be to your benefit if you make use of it.
Okay, thank you so much for your answer. Thank you so much for your question, Sister Limun Chin. Advin, right? Advin Wilkinson, you have question, right? Could you turn on your microphone and ask Thanachan? Okay, Edwin, can you hear me? Okay, you can. No, okay. Okay, please.
Okay.
We can hear you now.
Okay. My question, can you hear me, Venerable?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My question is kind of technical and maybe a little silly, but it's about how to avoid infinite regress during mindfulness meditation. So at any given moment, you kind of reflect on the previous moment, and then the next experience is that reflection. And so that would be the next experience to reflect on. And so if you continue reflecting on the previous reflection, then you get into a kind of infinite regress. And that for me is kind of confusing. So if you have any insight, I would appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. The mind doesn't really work that way. There are the mind states, to get really technical. I see you even have the manual of Abhidhamma on your bookshelf. The different minds, different vijnana have different functions. And so the one that relates most directly to the practice of mindfulness has a different function than the one which experiences something. So when you respond to an experience, to put it simply and simplistically in a way, when you respond to an experience with mindfulness, the next moment is not going to be responding to that responding. The next moment is going to be the result of the responding with mindfulness. And then you can take that as an object with mindfulness again. So it deals with how the mind is more complicated than just one mind, and another mind knows it, another mind knows it, another mind knows it. And as I understand your question, the idea that you're getting at, the mind just doesn't work that way. There's going to be a result of being mindful, and it would be that result, which is a vipaka. And it's much more complicated than that, of course. It's actually quite simplistic, but on a practical level, we don't engage with the mind on the level of the Abhidhamma. It's too quick, it's too complex. So simplistically and practically, we get a sense of the result of being mindful, or the result of any number of other things that are going to come in and interrupt, and we be mindful of that. But you don't take the mindfulness as an object. The mindfulness is a intentional mind, and it's an engaging mind. You just have to learn about the mental process, and you can get a sense of, at least a vague sense of what's really happening.
Okay, thank you so much for your questions, Advin. So, anyone has questions, so you can ask Sanachan. So I think it's very okay. Please.
Achan Gautamina.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, can I ask? Bandhami Achan. Very good morning, Achan. Achan, I have one doubt. I'm a Vipassana practitioner. So what's the difference between general meditation and Vipassana meditation?
Sorry, what was the name of the first one?
Achan, my name is Gautama Meena.
No. What was the first? You said the difference between two things. What was the first thing?
The first thing is, what is the difference between the common meditation and Vipassana meditation?
I don't understand the first thing that you're comparing. I understand Vipassana meditation. What's the other type of meditation?
Commonly used many people in meditation, right? Achan.
Commonly?
They used meditation.
Okay.
So what is the difference between meditation and Vipassana meditation?
So meditation and Vipassana meditation.
Yes, Achan.
Well, Vipassana meditation is meditation.
Okay. So that is the only teaching from Buddha, right, Achan? That is the teaching of Buddha, right, Achan?
Vipassana is the teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha talked in so many different ways about seeing clearly. The word Vipassana means seeing clearly.
Okay.
That's probably the best translation I can give of it. And so that's, very much what he taught. There are other types of meditation that are not Vipassana.
So we are the lay people, we have so much of confusion. Many people are saying like this, that's why.
All right. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about what makes Vipassana meditation. I practice a particular technique of meditation. And I often joked, I've heard people say about my meditation that if you practice my meditation way, it's Vipassana. If you practice it any other way, it's Samatha. I've heard other people say if you practice it the way I practice it, it's Samatha. And some other way is Vipassana. So it gets quite confusing. People think of a technique. We commonly look at meditations based on the technique, and that's not the best way to categorize meditation practices. It's one way, but it's not what makes a practice samatha or vipassana. And so I would say I'm probably too loud now, right? I would say there are, let's say 3 categories we can put meditation in. The first one is vipassana, the second one is samatha, and the third is what we would say is not meditation. People call what they're doing meditation, and we would say that's not really meditation. And so let's talk about that one first. That's something like if a person sits down and closes their eyes and just sees what happens, right? They just let whatever's going to happen, happen. Even they might, let's say they listen to some calming music or nature sounds or something. That's not meditation. It's not meditation if you're not doing anything, if you're not doing some work, if you're not training your mind, if you're just letting it go, just relaxing. That's not meditation. Yoga is not in and of itself meditation because it's training the body. So unless during the yoga you're training your mind in a specific way, that's not meditation. Sitting still is not meditation. Walking back and forth is not meditation. You have to be training the mind in some way for it to be meditation. So in what we would call meditation, I guess, let's say there's even another category that's not meditation, is where you train your mind. It is meditation, but it's bad meditation, where you train your mind in a bad way. In English, we have a phrase, premeditated murder. And it's kind of apt because you think about it. You cultivate the will to murder someone. If you sit around and you plot it out and you convince yourself, you work yourself, you encourage yourself to do it, you develop the mind state of desire to kill. That's a kind of a meditation because you're training your mind. Soldiers have to train their minds as well as their bodies. They have to train themselves to be able to kill. If you train yourself in greed, in anger, in delusion, if your training involves that, that we would say is bad meditation. But any other kind of meditation, we can say falls into two categories. And it's not based on the technique that you use to train your mind. It's based on the object that your meditation is focused on. And here's the definition that I will give. You can judge for yourself whether it's right. Any meditation that takes ultimate reality as an object is Vipassana meditation. Any meditation that does not take ultimate reality as its object is Samatha meditation. So it takes a conceptual object. So what does it mean, ultimate reality and conceptual object? Ultimate reality, to put it simply, without talking too much about Abhidhamma, is your experience. Experience is quite simple. There's not much diversity. There's seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, and thinking. These six are experience, and they're real. We know they're real because we experience them. But the objects that we see and hear and so on, and think about, the things, the entities, are concepts. So if you hear a dog barking, hearing is an experience, that's real. But the dog, you're not experiencing the dog. Dog is something that arises in your mind, in your heart. You get maybe a picture of a dog in your mind, or a concept, an idea of a dog. And that's a concept. So meditation that focuses on the concept, the dog, is Samatha meditation. Meditation that focuses on the hearing, the experience that arises and ceases at the ear, is Vipassana meditation. Why is that? Because focusing on the dog it's very simple. The simple reason is focusing on the dog, focusing on any concept, will not allow you to see the three characteristics. And Vipassana, seeing clearly, means seeing the three characteristics, seeing the nature of reality as anicca, dukkha, and anatta. You cannot see that in concepts. The concept of a dog is permanent, is stable. It's like the concept of the Buddha. If you think of the Buddha when you meditate, the Buddha is still the Buddha after 2,500 years. He hasn't changed. He hasn't become something else. He hasn't ceased. But your thoughts of him, those thoughts arise and cease. So if you focus on the thinking about the Buddha, if you focus on the thought, that's real. If you focus on the Buddha, it's not real. It's a concept. It's stable, satisfying, and it's controllable. These kind of meditations are the ones that allow you to control your mind, to enter into high states of concentration, cultivate magical powers, remember your past lives, read people's minds, see things far away, hear things far away, and so on. That's samatha meditation. Vipassana meditation, focusing on the experience, it is focusing on things that arise and cease, things that come and go quite quickly. And so it's not pleasant. It's not stable. It's not controllable. And it has nothing, and there's no self. So non-self, not only not controllable, but these things are not entities. They're not concrete. They don't have a self to them. Like this, here you can see this, what is this? This is a fist, right? Is this fist real? You see the fist? Watch. Look at this fist, right? This is a thing. It's an entity. Now, when I go like this, where did the fist go? The fist wasn't real. It isn't real. It doesn't exist. There's seeing and there's conceiving. But the seeing arises and ceases. And it doesn't have a self, doesn't have entities. So by focusing in that way, you're cultivating vipassana. That's what makes something vipassana. So the meditation tradition that I follow is making use of a mantra. And that's the technique. It's often called noting practice, but I think that's missing the point. Because it's exactly the same meditation as saying to yourself, Buddho, Buddho. Or, which you might not be familiar of, things like Patavi, Patavi. Some of you might know that. Patavi means earth, and it's the example given in the Visuddhimagga of a samatha meditation, focusing on the concept of earth. Earth as a concept, thinking of earth, the earth, earthiness. You take a disc of clay and you put it in front of you and you say, Patavi, Patavi, or something like that. In Thai, they would say din, din, din. In English, you would say earth, 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 if you want. And you come to be able to conceptualize earth as your experience. But the point is, they use a mantra. There's a use of a mantra, a word or a phrase that you repeat to yourself that focuses your attention. My tradition uses that as well. And using the mantra does not make it samatha. And this is why I said I have heard people say, you're using a mantra, that must be samatha. And that's impossible to be correct. It has nothing to do with the use of a mantra or whatever. It has to do with the object. If the object that the mantra is pointing to is a concept, then yes, it's samatha meditation. But instead of focusing on the Buddha or earth, if you focus on seeing or hearing and you say to yourself, hearing, hearing, then you're focused on the reality and you're able to experience it clearly arising and ceasing. But it focuses your attention nonetheless. So the difference there is just in the object. If I heard a dog and I said to myself, dog, 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 and I was imagining a dog, then that would be samatha meditation, because the dog would be consistent. But if you say hearing, hearing, if you listen to my voice and say hearing, hearing, you come to see that, it's not consistent. It's unpredictable. It's not very comfortable or pleasant to focus on it as an object, because you can't predict when I'm going to start speaking and when I'm going to stop. It disturbs your peace and quiet that samatha gives you. So that's a basic rundown of the differences between samatha and vipassana.
Okay, Venerable Kemamon, right? Okay, please unmute your microphones.
Yes, good morning, Ajahn. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much for your allowing me to ask the question with Ajahn. I would like to know from Ajahn meditation. In my question is, sorry, I respect also our friend also. My question is, in the modern day, in the modern society, some of the people they usually practice mindfulness meditation. Some other people, they are often, not every day, often, they practice mindfulness meditation. Some other people, they are never practice mindfulness meditation. Those people, three of the people, how they are different to concentrate their mind, to train their mind, how they are different. I would like to know from Ajahn, your voice, please, with example, Ajahn. Could you give me with example, please? Thank you so much, Ajahn.
Okay. Do you mean people who practice other types of meditation instead?
I mean, some of the people, they practice meditation every day.
Okay.
Some of the people, they often they practice, not every day. First, yes. Some of the people never practice meditation. With example, Ajahn, how they are different to concentration in their mind.
Well, you can't generalize because everyone is different, right? Some people are drug addicts. Some people are murderers. But the biggest difference is the delusion, the moha. Because even a person who is good, who practices kusala, can still have avidya. They still have ignorance. So they can never be free from samsara. Even if they help people and do good deeds, they still may have ignorance. So it will be difficult to tell the difference because you look at them and you say, they're such a good person. They're kind, they're thoughtful, they're wise in a worldly way. But they don't have the clarity of mind. They don't have the clear understanding of their momentary experiences. So I'm hesitant to talk about a difference between someone who practices every day. Let's say someone who is mindful throughout their day. Because at the moment when you're mindful, your experience is very different. You're not experiencing people. You're experiencing moments. You're going to be looking at the world quite differently. So you'll see things like the engagement on a personal level. If you see someone hurt, a person who is not mindful will become upset. They'll be worried about them. If you see someone who is smiling and charming and beautiful, the person who is not mindful will become attracted to them, will engage with them. But even if they are free from attraction, aversion, they're still going to engage as people. They're going to be asking questions and talking about issues of people. They will engage in conversation about current events. A person who is practicing mindfulness if they are truly dedicated to it, they're going to be much more focused on their experiences. They're going to be answering questions based on experiences. Their mind is going to be much more pure, but it's also going to be much more experiential. So they will be talking about experiences. They won't be talking all that much either. But the difference is really in the outlook. The outlook on a conceptual level versus on an experiential level. So if you practice mindfulness meditation, you know the difference. The one way of looking at the world is you're looking at the seeing, the hearing, the feeling, and the thinking, and all the emotions and so on. You're seeing that as it's happening. A person who is working on on a conceptual level is focused on the things, the people, the concepts, the situations, issues, current events. And so their outlook is going to be much different. They will become tired and unhealthy as a result, because they're not. The Buddha said it's like if you cut grass, that grass dries up. It's like that. When your mind is cut off from reality, living in concepts, even if you have good intentions, the dealing with abstractions is unhealthy. And so you feel tired, you feel unhealthy, you feel unwell. It's why people who try to do good in the world often become burnt out, because they're not grounded in reality. I don't know if that was the answer you're looking for, but
Thank you so
that
much.
would be.
I got your points. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, next. Yom Benjaporn, right? You have any question? And next turn is Daniel. Okay.
Please forgive me, my hand touched
Okay.
on the photo. How can I do? I can
Okay.
do it.
Okay. That's
Thank you very
no
much.
problem. Okay, no problem. Daniel, next, please. Please unmute your microphone. Thanks.
Okay, Namaskar, Chan. And my name is Dorje Daniel, and I'm here a student at IBSC. And today I have a question for our Prajan Vita Damo Biku, that I was always like thinking about this thing, that how do you practice the mindfulness meditation if you have like childhood trauma, or like you grow up in the violent family, like growing up in that kind of environment, you grow up. So how do you practice, and what kind of meditation would be helpful for like some person who grew up with this kind of trauma, and to develop like self-compassion, to develop more strength, awareness, and to have compassion to other people and to themselves too. So how do you practice this mindfulness meditation for this kind of person specifically? Mm-hmm. And thank you very much. This is my question.
Can I ask you, I mean, I could probably tell you my answer, but I'll ask you, what is trauma?
Trauma could be you growing up with some aggressive father and thinking about that kind of violence.
Yeah, okay. Not the example, but the actual, what is trauma?
Trauma could be like something every day, some person thinking about.
Not the example, but the thinking a lot.
Yeah.
And why are they thinking a lot?
Because that could be influenced their some period of time when they were a child, or when they grow up being like they were experiencing this kind of thing every time, and that thing could be stuck in their mind, and It's coming like every day when they see some stuff, right?
It's coming good. It's coming every day when they're seeing some. So why I ask is because trauma is one of these things that become a thing. Like if suppose someone has PTSD, that becomes a thing that they have, like this thing that I have, right? It's a thing. But when you break it down, you take it on from another perspective. And that's what mindfulness does. My answer is that I really do think mindfulness is the answer, because a person doesn't have trauma. They do, but that's only a conceptual way of talking about it. And we don't want to focus on the conceptual level. If a person has depression, anxiety, we actually don't want them to identify with having this thing that you can call anxiety or depression or PTSD. You know PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, it's basically what you're talking about, the term they use, PTSD. Because you can't fix that. You can't fix concepts in general, just to cut to the chase. But when we try to figure out what is the answer to my problem. My problem is trauma. What is the answer to it? And because trauma is just a concept, it's like a billiard ball. You can't dissect it. It's a thing. What happens if you cut trauma in half? Just a joke, no? You can't. It's trauma. Trauma isn't divisible, but our experiences are divisible into individual experiences. And so our habits, and this is a key word, habit, is divisible into moments where we reinforce the habit and we cultivate the habit, because that's a part of what trauma is. It's not the whole story. But the reason why trauma becomes unmanageable is because it becomes habitual and because we reinforce the habit. So meditation is all about habits. It's about growing new habits, it's about cutting down old habits, and it's about understanding our existing habits. Those three things, they're part of the same practice. It's not three different things, but those are the results. You build up good habits, you cut down bad habits, and the main catalyst that allows you to do that is seeing your habits, seeing the nature of habits. Now, the thing about trauma, the real thing about it, in my mind, is its intensity. Why trauma is an issue is because you had an intense reaction. And then you repeated that intense reaction. These isn't normal habits. This is something that an ordinary person cannot cope with. Most people cannot cope with. Suppose a person is, raped or sexually assaulted. That's a thing that is very hard to cope with. It's an overload of your emotion. And so you have an intense negative reaction about that. And that reaction disturbs you, and it encourages the thinking about the thing that you reacted to, which makes you react again and again and again and again, and it creates a feedback loop, and that's how the habit is started. So habits are a thing that mindfulness meditation deals with, but the problem with trauma is it's the intensity. That's all. That's the only difference. Any mental illness, anxiety, depression, phobias, they're all habits. They have, there's more to them, but essentially what's causing the problem is that you're habituating them, you're reinforcing them and reifying them. So the only difference with trauma is it's the intense ones. It's the ones that were so intense that we just can't even cope, and it's hard for meditators to cope with. That being said, it's not impossible, and it's not something that meditation can't deal with. Meditation can deal with this. Give someone who has trauma, PTSD of any sort, give them the circumstance, the environment, and the instruction and give them the wholesome qualities of mind as what we call upanisaya that they have to have from past lives and so on, that make them a good person, right? A good person with PTSD, the goodness inside of them will support them, along with having a good teacher, along with having a good environment. And mindfulness is all they need. I mean, mindfulness as a core is all they need, with all the, keeping ethical precepts and all of that. But basically, undertaking in the proper environment mindfulness. I've had people who have gone through what I would say is pretty extreme PTSD, childhood trauma, and childhood trauma that they just, you could see it after so many years that they were just on their last thread, hanging by a thread, I would say in English, and could see how mindfulness changes that. It brings you back. It gives you life again. It changes your perspective. It takes you out of that realm of concepts. This person hurt me. All of that is just conceptual, and it reinforces this impossible situation because you can't divide it. It's a thing that happened. You can't change it. You can't make it not have happened. And the change in perspective is to the qualities of mind or the states of mind that bring up that experience, that evoke a memory. Because what is a memory? A memory isn't the past, it's now. It's a thought right now. And no matter what you think, no matter what you see, no matter what you hear right now, these are only experiences. They're only seeing, they're only hearing. And so mindfulness helps remind you of that. The word mindfulness actually should be remembering, because that's what Sati means. Sati means remembering, or the ability to remember, the capacity to remember. And in this, the meaning is remember the experience for what it is. Remember that it's just seeing, it's just hearing, and so on.
Thank you very much, Ajahn, for answering my question.
Okay, thank you so much, Daniel, for your question. So next, William, right? William, and then next turn is Venerable Suchita. Okay. First, Venerable William, William, so please.
Namaskar, Ajahn. I must admit, I'm a little bit nervous because I think almost 7 years ago, I first watched your recordings about Vipassana practice. So I feel like I've known you for a long time, but it may not be the same experience for you right now. But my question is that I've recently changed my regular life from living in a very quiet village temple, not seeing many people and having time to practice. From there, I've moved to Bangkok and I've begun tertiary studies. So my life is incredibly busy now with lots of things to do, lots of agitations and stimulations. And I wonder if you could offer any advice with what that's all about, I guess, and techniques or ways to manage that that sudden change of circumstances.
Yeah. Well, you have to accept that during the time that you're studying, you're abandoning a type of meditation or a level of mindfulness, a level of meditation. You just can't be expected to maintain it. It's a balibodha. It's a obstacle to meditation practice. So that being said, there's no excuse really for not having a daily meditation routine. And I think that's essential because there are times where you might not be meditating every day. And that's what's going to get in the way. That's what's really going to cause problems. So my recommendation is absolutely ensure that you have a daily meditation practice, a formal meditation practice. On top of that, of course, things like daily meditation, daily life meditation, where you're mindful walking down the street and so on. But I think absolutely. I mean, don't be hard on yourself when you're not able to do it, but consider that to be a goal to maintain how am I going to get back on track if you get off track? Daily meditation. Make sure you're doing some every day and always strive for that. But you also do, to some extent, have to think, during this time, my meditation is not going to be the same, and it is my intention to pick it back up again once I have finished my studies. Don't fall into the trap of becoming a study monk. That's what I would say. I don't know if that's such a thing, but you wouldn't want to think of yourself, I'll just keep studying and meditating as well or something. You really shouldn't. You should give up your studies once you're ready to commit yourself to practice.
I think that's what I'm scared of the most is, suddenly getting used to being a study monk and practice becoming something which I'll get around to, thank you so much for your advice.
You do kind of have to, I mean, it's orthodox. I mean, it's according to the texts. You do have to say you are putting aside your meditation when you study. You should have a daily practice. You can have a daily practice, but it's not going to be the same. And you have to be aware that you're going to have to eventually convert back to giving up your studies. I mean, you really should. You don't have to. Of course, it's in reality possible for a person studying at university to become enlightened, of course, because it's just reality. But it's not practically feasible, and it's not the way you should do it. It's not the way it should be done. So you have to think of it, to follow tradition, eventually give up your study again.
Thank you so much, Ajahn.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, available Suchita, right?
Yes. Good morning, Ajahn, and also this group, my Dhamma brother and sister. So I'm really appreciating all this QA mindfulness practice. So I'm really confused about when we practice. So those who are usually practice meditation, so there are so many techniques. If we summarize, there are two things. So samatha and vipassana. This is a real meditation. So samatha comes from samadhi, vipassana comes from panya. So in here, I a little confused. Where there is meditation center, they didn't mention about precept. Sila. There is three things: sila, samadhi, panya. So firstly, we should practice sila. After that, samadhi and panya. So everywhere, every teacher, so they mention only samatha and vipassana to practice meditation. So, but I don't understand why they never mention about sila. This is a precept. So without precept, we can practice meditation or not. So everyone have precept. So for human, 5 precept. For man, 2 to 7. So something like that. So without precept, so we can develop our concentration, our vipassana meditation, something like that. So I just a little bit confused about this one. Why they don't mention about sila? This is a very important for our Buddhist community. So my question is how to practice meditation with the Buddhist perspective. So the Buddhist way, meditation techniques, the real meditation techniques, how to practice step by step. So thank you so much, Ajahn.
So I'll take, I have to say a few things. Samatha doesn't come from samadhi, and vipassana doesn't come from panya. Now, I'm not exactly disagreeing with you, but we have to not conflate the two. So it's true that samatha is basically samadhi, and vipassana is basically panya. But the meditation practice is both samadhi. Vipassana meditation is still samadhi because you're actually not practicing vipassana. You cannot practice vipassana. Let's be clear about this. In vipassana meditation, no one ever practices vipassana. And this is not just a theory, not just a theoretical point. It's an important practical point, because what does vipassana mean? It means to see the three characteristics, really, basically, very briefly, to see anicca, dukkha, and anatta. You cannot practice that. And meditators who hear this will try to practice it. Will sit down and try to see impermanence, suffering, and non-self. That's not how meditation is conducted. Vipassana is the result of vipassana meditation. I'll say it again. Vipassana is the result of vipassana meditation. The meditation itself is what? It's actually satipatthana. You don't practice vipassana, you practice satipatthana vipassana. I'm not yet answering your question, but just to be clear here what we're talking about. Samatha meditation, the result of samatha meditation is samatha. You don't actually even practice samatha. You practice meditation, kammatthana, you can say, and there's mindfulness there, but the mindfulness is not focused on paramattha dhamma. So because of that, the result is samatha. So that's why you might say that vipassana is panya and samatha is samadhi, but they are both samadhi. The difference is, if you have samadhi here, vipassana goes to the next step. Samatha does not. Samatha cannot go here. So you have samadhi, because of samadhi, then there is panya. But here, no panya. There cannot be, because you cannot see anicca, dukkha, and anatta. You cannot see clearly. So samatha only stays at samadhi. That's the point. It can never make the jump to panya, not without switching to practice vipassana. So that's the first thing. That doesn't answer your question, but I just wanted to say that technically they are both samadhi. And you're perfectly right to point out that you need sila to cultivate samadhi. You're also perfectly in your right to point out that perhaps some meditation centers de-emphasize sila. There are meditation centers that don't even talk about sila. They don't require you to stop killing, stealing, lying, cheating, drugs and alcohol. Some meditation centers, not in our traditions, of course, but some meditation centers in the world don't have a problem with drugs and alcohol, or even killing. Or killing animals, insects, and so on. But truth be told, I would take issue with I would point out to you that sila is not just the precepts. And in fact, I would argue that the precepts themselves are not actually sila. The precepts themselves are guidelines. They are like, I always compare them to fence posts. If you're going to make a fence, you need posts, right? The posts tell you where the fence is going to be. But if you put up a bunch of fence posts, you're not going to keep your horses in the corral. You're not going to keep your cows in the pasture with just fence posts, because they're not the fence. That's why they are not sila. The reason why people kill is because they have the inclination to kill, because they have allowed their minds to give rise to the mind states that cause them to kill. So true sila most especially for the purpose of cultivating samadhi, is the fourth type of sila, which is indriya, or not, I don't know, it's one of the four. It's the guarding of the faculties, indriya samvara sila. Because there's no categorical difference between hitting a person out of anger, and walking around with anger. Suppose you get angry at someone and you stomp around the house, boom, boom, boom. We can say that is dusila, because that is action that is immoral. Walking around, every step you take with anger, when you stomp your foot out of anger, that's the same, it's not categorically different from punching someone. It is the expression of the physical expression caused by anger. There's anger in your mind, and that causes you to stomp around, it causes you to hurt people, it causes you to say things. But if you shout in your room and there's no one around to hear, if you're shouting out of anger, it's still dusila, it's still unwholesome. And most importantly, for meditation, it's still going to hurt your practice of mindfulness. So I would redirect your thinking to say that mindfulness is where we start. And mindfulness will take you through sila, samadhi, and panya. Now, I'm not saying a person who starts meditation shouldn't keep the precepts, but keeping the precepts is like putting down fence posts. If you see the fence posts, you know where your fence is, and you can judge when you're crossing the fence, when you're on the wrong side of the fence. Keeping down knowing killing is, if you know that killing is wrong, then anytime you have the desire to kill something, you know you've crossed the fence. It helps you, but that's all it does. I can say panati pata veramani sikkhapadang, and I can still go out and kill. The precept didn't help me at all. Why? Because I was too unmindful. But mindfulness takes you through all three. If you're focused on ultimate reality, when you walk, you can't walk with anger when you're mindful. You can't speak with anger. You can't hurt someone with mindfulness. So you have sila, samadhi, because you're focused on the object clearly, seeing it as it is, samadhi. The clarity of seeing creates an understanding of anicca, dukkha, and anatta. That's panya. So that's my idea. That's my answer for you.
Okay. Next questions. Putong, right? I'm so sorry that I maybe missed. Okay. Please.
Good morning. Since Ajahn have said that our mind likes to grab on conceptual level, so I'm not really clear about what is the conceptual and the ultimate truth. I'm not clear about these two things. And finally, how can we do meditation based on non-conceptual reality or conceptual truth? So how can we do that again?
So take the example of hearing a dog bark. If you hear a dog bark, how do you know it's a real dog barking? What if I said to you, it's just a recording of a dog? Someone has a big speaker and or maybe it's a human being making a noise like a dog. Or maybe it's a bird that can sound like a dog, right? So when you hear a dog, the dog is not real. You cannot know that the dog is real. It's not important whether you do know, but I'm trying to help you to understand the thing about concepts is they're not actually real. That's different from the experience of hearing. Hearing is real. What did you hear? We don't know. But the hearing was real. That's the difference between ultimate reality and conceptual reality. It doesn't matter whether the dog exists. Suppose there's a dog behind your kuti and you hear the dog. Anything to do with dog is all happening in your mind, in your heart, right? In your mind. I point to the head, but it's not like that. It's in your mind. There arises the dog. The dog is not over there behind your kuti. The dog is in your mind. And where does it come from? Where does the dog come from? Not over there. The dog comes from the hearing. The only reason dog arises is as a result of the hearing. Hearing first, and then your mind says dog. What if it was a bird that sounded like a dog? Ghosts. People in Thailand are very much afraid of ghosts. When I first went to Thailand, I wasn't a monk, of course, and my name is Noah. So I was in Chiang Mai, outside of Chiang Mai in the countryside, and in the middle of the night, I heard this noise, Noah, 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 and I heard it and heard it and heard it and heard it. Oh, and it scared the heck out of me. I was so scared. There's a bird in Chiang Mai that makes a noise, Noah, Noah. They still laugh about it. My uncle still laughs about it. Oh yes, we have the Noah bird here. Because I told him about it. I said, last night, I don't know what I heard, but it was like a ghost calling my name. There was the sound, and my mind processed that sound as my name. The bird wasn't calling my name. It didn't even know my name. I created it in my mind, and then I created more. In Thai we say prung teng, right? There was no Noah. It wasn't calling Noah. There was no ghost. There was just a bird. So the concepts are things like that. If you want to put it in meditation terms, let's take a real example of meditation. Metta meditation. When you say to yourself, may all beings be happy. Or to make it simple, talk about one being. And so they talk about in the Visuddhimagga a meditation practice of focusing on someone who you don't like, someone who you have anger towards. So you think about that person and you think, may that person be happy. Your object at that time is a concept. Your object is the person. But where is the person? The person is in your mind. You're conceiving of a person and you're using that person to evoke in your mind love, kindness, metta. When you say to yourself, may they be happy, in your mind, there arises metta. But your object is a person. No matter how concentrated you become, because there's no connection, no engagement with ultimate reality, no engagement with experience, your thoughts are on what? On the person, that person. May they be happy. Thinking about them happy, thinking to yourself, I wish for them to be happy, imagining them happy, that sort of thing, is all concepts. Put it really simply, it's mental. It's mental construct. You create it in the mind. It's not what you're actually experiencing. So in this case, for example, if instead you think about a person and you get angry, instead of saying, oh, may they be happy, replace the anger with love. If you focus on the anger and you said angry, angry, and if you focused on the thought and say thinking, or when you see the person and you say seeing, then you're focused on the actual moments of experience that when you put them together, they become hatred or they become love. If you focus on those moments of experience, that's ultimate reality. It's easiest to appreciate when you actually practice Satipatthana Vipassana, because then you make that shift and you realize to start that your own body doesn't even exist. When I look at, like, you look at your hand, right? Like you look at the fist. Oh, where did the fist go? But that's a silly example, but that's what happens. You close your eyes and over time, your body disappears. It's like, wow, my body disappeared. But what's actually true is that your mind is now no longer perceiving what isn't there. Because when you close your eyes, what is there? There's not a body. There's experiences, physical sensations that remind you body, body. But they are not body. They are experiences. They arise and they cease. When you make that shift, when you only experience your experiences and perceive your experiences, then you're on the level of ultimate reality. That's where Vipassana arises.
Okay, so I'm not sure that they finished for this question, right? Okay, so next, Brother Dujun. Yes, please.
Morning, Ajahn. Yes.
Sorry, we cannot hear you clearly.
About the technical wisdom that something matters they taught about Sati, and they also, okay, can you hear me?
Okay, please
Hello?
repeat your question again. No, maybe your internet is not good sometimes.
Can you hear me?
Okay, could you please repeat your question again? Okay, maybe you come again, I think. Okay, you can put your question in the chat box, I think.
I have learned that in the technique that when practice and I love. Sorry. Other one first, I later log in again.
Later. Cannot hear.
We cannot hear you clearly, so let's.
You can put in the chat box.
Okay. BA to Huang Ti, right? Huang Ti. Pikuni Huang Ti. Okay, please.
Yes, good morning, Ajahn and everybody. So today I have a question for you. So when I do meditation, because my trouble is I have a pain back, and I can't do sitting for a long time. But in my Mahayana tradition, I can incorporate meditation and mindfulness to my daily basis. But it is a tall order. It's quite challenging task for me as a beginner. Even as I know the concepts of Vipassana and see things as they are, as they are. But in the daily basis, when I live with the people, some people, who always make scenes with me and off at me. At the time, I try to tame my mind, and I always try to send out my compassion for them. And also with them happy, I don't push out my anger for them. Even I want to burn down. But after that, other time I can deal with it. I can, have mindfulness, and I don't react with their bad actions. But after that, I know that I'm an overthinker, and I overthink again. I mull over and over again, and it's stuck in my mind for quite a long. I want to ask you, do any solution how to reduce terrible time? Just think about how much they hurt me, and I know that I myself is impermanent, emptiness, and the feeling is just a feeling. Feelings is impermanent, rising, falling, like that. I know very clearly, but how to apply it to gain the good, to a better result is so difficult for me. So thank you so much, question.
Okay, so you have to be able to separate intellectual knowing from experiential knowing. Because if you know impermanence or suffering or non-self, you're already enlightened. And you would never have a problem. So we don't know. Even knowing intellectually, you have to put that aside. It's not going to help you. Thinking about things, setting your mind in a certain way, saying, I will be nice to these people, I will not get angry. You have to set that aside. You have to study. Think of it like a study course. What you're studying is your mind. You're studying your experience. That's all. You're not trying to fix it. Because trying to fix it is like just getting yourself more stuck in it. Because when you try to fix something, you've already decided that it's a problem. You're already creating a problem. In order to fix, you need a problem. Vipassana meditation isn't about fixing problems. This is an important advice for everyone. A reminder. Vipassana meditation is not about fixing problems. It's about understanding experiences. So you have to make the shift there as well. An ordinary way of looking at reality is problems, solutions, fixing. And so everything is a problem, problem to fix. What is the solution? You think about the solution. Vipassana, the shift you make is to see it not as a problem, but as an experience, as moments of experience. And they are not to be solved. They are to be understood, or they are to be seen clearly. And the result of seeing clearly is not a solution, it's understanding. Understanding doesn't solve your problems, it changes them. It helps you see through them, that they are not problems. It helps you see the truth of your reality. And that doesn't mean you don't act on a conceptual level to solve your problems, but your mind is not focused on them as problems. You're able to solve all your problems. All of life's issues become much easier to solve because you're focused on the reality behind them. You're seeing what's really happening. If it's with a person who is angry at you or you're angry at them, you're no longer blinded by them, the person, the angry person or the bad person. You're no longer blinded by your own anger, your idea of what they did to you or how they act toward what they said and how they act towards you. You're seeing, oh, there's anger here and there's anger here and there's sound coming from here and there's hearing here. And you understand, yes, there's a lot of anger there. And so you know maybe to avoid that person. But because you're seeing it clearly, you don't get angry yourself. You don't react, you don't judge. That's a very general sort of answer. I would say practically try to avoid people who make you angry. Try your best to stay to yourself and surround yourself with people who are supportive and to give you the space to practice. Also, don't surround yourself with people who like to talk to you and engage with you and distract you from the practice. But try and stay away from those people you have real difficulties with. One misunderstanding, I think, that often comes up is people think that in order to understand your problems, you have to have problems. You have to engage with them. And that running away from them is a bad thing. Running away as an attitude is a bad thing. But finding a place where you can begin to make sense of your reality and have the conducive environment to do that, it's not running away. It's like creating a laboratory. Like if you want to study COVID, you can't just go up and take a magnifying glass to the people who have COVID. You have to isolate it in a laboratory. And you have to be very careful with it because otherwise you might catch it. So you can't just go on the street and say, can I study your COVID? No, find someone who has it and study. No, that would be disastrous. Go away, go into your laboratory, have a protected environment where you can study. And from studying, then you can create a vaccine and you can take it out into the world. So appreciate the wholesomeness of what we call a retreat, where you take time to simplify and protect yourself from the things that trigger your mental problems. You can take that as an attitude. Of course, in life we cannot control, but quite often we encourage. We have to engage with certain people, so we engage with them. Rather than protecting ourselves, we get caught up in the things that we have to engage with. You always have choices as to the level of your engagement. Even if you have to talk to people, have to meet with people, have to live with people, you don't have to engage with them, and most especially engage with their defilements. When I came back from my first meditation course in Thailand, I didn't know I didn't know up or down or anything. And I remember my parents yelling at me, saying, "You're just like a zombie." Because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to engage with them. I didn't know how to be, because the old person I was rotten, was not a very good person. I couldn't be that person anymore. So I remember they were yelling and I would just close my eyes and say, rising, falling. And then when they yell, hearing. They got angry because of that, but I had no choice. I had to protect myself because I didn't know how to talk to them. I didn't know much about Buddhism. I went into meditation without any knowledge of Buddhism, really. All that I learned in the beginning was from that meditation course. And so it took me a long time to be able to engage properly. But absolutely, I think you have to protect yourself. You have to disengage. And your way of engaging with the world has to change because it will change. And that will sometimes make people upset. But that's only because change upsets people. It's not your fault. We think we have to, right? If someone's engaging us, we think, oh, well, I have to chat with them. And you don't have to. If they get upset because you're no fun anymore, because you're not entertaining, because you're not friendly, that's only them getting upset because of their attachment, because of their lobha, their dosa, their moha. So just one recommendation there, to try and protect yourself.
Okay. Let's move to next questions. We have 3 students. Dujun, Tita Meta, and Sikhamana. So I will move to Dujun first, and the second one is Venerable Tita Meta and Sikhamana. Okay. Please, Dujun.
Hello, John. My name is Tita Meta.
Okay. Okay.
And
it's okay.
Oh, sorry. Did someone else needed to ask the question?
Yeah, please. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So my question, I am Estonian monk, and my question is it possible to see things as they really are when the 5 hindrances are active? Thank you.
Not at the moment. You have to see it a little more granular than that. Because what does it mean to say the 5 hindrances are active? Does that mean for an hour they're active? No. That's not how the mind works. Hindrances aren't active. They arise. They arise in the mind. And they're momentary. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha talks about taking the 5 hindrances as an object of meditation, and that's a bit controversial. Or you hear people who seem to say the opposite, say that you can't. It's tricky because obviously they cloud the mind and they create results that are going to be habits of blindness. There's no question. And there's no question that in order to really see clearly, you have to reduce and remove them from the mind. But so it's not quite a simple answer. I would say 2 things. One, that technically, even the hindrances can be an object of meditation, but even in the beginning, you're not going to have hindrances all the time. And so the mindfulness is fighting with those hindrances. But the second part of the answer is that absolutely not. In the end, to truly see clearly, you have to completely shut them down. And so that's just a gradual process of eventually having mindfulness overwhelm the hindrances.
Okay, so Tita Meta, it's okay. Okay, then let's move to Dujun, right? Dujun.
Yes,
Ajahn. Once again.
Okay. Thank you, Ajahn. Morning, Ajahn. I want to ask some questions about the Forest Sangha tradition. I learned that when they practice
That's not me, is it?
And they're also chanting Buddha, Buddha, breath in, Buddha. Okay. Oh, hello.
Sorry, we cannot hear you clearly, brother. Maybe.
It's quite clear at the end.
Okay, so could you put your question in the chat box, brother Tujun? Okay, let's move to Sikamana, right? Sikamana, sister. Okay, please.
Yes. Good morning, Ajahn, and good morning all my class, all my friends. So I have the one question. All the time, I have one time. All the time, I just always pay attention to practice meditation. Maybe one day I practice 10 hours for sitting meditation and walking meditation, and I don't see and I don't talk any people. But at that time, I have the more concentration. I can observe my breathing in and breathing out from to the end, from start to the end. But after that, I have time to study. But I cannot continue to keep concentration like the time I practice. So, and sometimes I try to remind me practice meditation with daily activity, but it made me very difficult. And if I pay more attention to practice meditation, so after that I cannot do like I cannot talk with any of my friend. I don't want to. I don't want to learn. Sometimes like that. So I have the one question how I can make the balance when I live with my friend or when I do something in my temple. Because when I do, my mind just look at inside and want to practice meditation and don't want to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What sort of meditation do you practice?
I practice Vipassana meditation, observe falling and rising.
Okay. And you say to yourself, rising, falling?
No, I don't say, I just observe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would offer you the suggestion of trying to use a mantra.
Yeah.
So when there's rising and falling, actually say to yourself, rising, falling. Because it sounds like you might be focused too much on, and it's not too much, but focused on the concentration, on the quiet mind, right?
Yes.
You don't need that for Vipassana. So if you try to use the mantra, then you can pick it up every moment, and you get what is called kanika samadhi, momentary concentration. So every time, even if you're upset, you can say to yourself, upset. It reminds you. I could give a whole talk on why the mantra is important, but in brief, do you know what the proximate cause of Sati is? The proximate cause of Sati is very technical and theoretical, but the proximate cause of Sati is something called Tira Sanya. This is what creates mindfulness.
Yes.
Tira Sanya, Tira means strong or firm, and Sanya, Sanya is perception or recognition. So when you say to yourself, upset, or when you say to yourself, pain, or when you say to yourself, restless, you are reminding yourself, you are reinforcing that recognition. You say, oh, I'm distracted. But when you repeat to yourself, distracted, it repeats, it reinforces and strengthens the perception that keeps you from flying off the handle, from getting lost and getting distracted, getting upset about it. It doesn't make you quiet, but that's not important. Remember, in Vipassana, we want to see impermanence, suffering, and non-self. And if you, putting that aside, if you look at the Four Noble Truths, what is the first noble truth? What is the first noble truth? You know?
The first noble truth is dukkha.
Suffering.
What are we supposed to do about dukkha?
With the dukkha, I just
What are we supposed to do? No. What are we supposed to do according to the first noble truth? According to the Buddha, what are we supposed to do? What should we do?
Have to believe.
Have to what?
Have to believe that is the suffering.
No.
As a dukkha.
You have to what?
To know
You
as a
should
dukkha.
know. You should know the dukkha.
Dukkha as a dukkha is
almost. That's almost the answer. I won't accept it because that's not the word. The word is parinyaya. Many of you know this word, right?
Yes.
Parinyaya, to know pari, like parinibbana. Pari means all around, completely. So what we're supposed to do is understand dukkha, to know it completely. So remember that when you think, oh, why I wish I could be quiet, I wish I could be peaceful, I wish I could be calm. That's not exactly the important thing. It is useful, to be calm is useful, but it can also distract you. And when you cannot be calm, when you're living in life and in school and so on, you miss the point if you focus too much on the calm that you don't have and how you're distracted. The point is dukkha. You know? Dukkha because of what? Because anicca, because anatta. Yes. Right? So if you apply mindfulness without worrying about focusing and concentrating and quieting the mind, but just seeing it's coming, it's going, it's coming, it's going, seeing moment by moment, you can gain insight, you can find peace. You find a different kind of peace that doesn't require your mind to stop thinking. Doesn't require you to have a stable experience. You become more flexible. So I would recommend, consider to try using the mantra, rising, falling, because it will keep you moments. If you just observe, you get into more samatha. Yeah.
Yes, maybe I practice more concentration.
I think so. I think it's common thing that happens.
Yes.
So try using the mantra. When you feel pain, you can say to yourself, pain, pain. If you're thinking, you can say thinking. If you're distracted, you can say distracted, distract. Liking, disliking, drowsiness, distraction, doubt, the 5 nivarana. If you like, you can say liking, liking. If you dislike, say, you don't say out loud, of course, but in your mind, you remind yourself, liking, disliking, and seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting. You can use a mantra, actually. Remind yourself. That's tirasanya. That gives rise to sati.
Because I think I will practice concentration the first, and after that I will change to practice Vipassana. Yes, this is the way to with my
You can, but if you want to do that, technically you should go off into the forest and live alone. If you want samatha, stop studying, go off in the forest. You can't just say, I'll do a little bit of samatha. It doesn't work that way.
And sometimes I want to stop studying.
Yes, that's a good thing. But either way, Vipassana is the essence. What you need is, it goes through all 3, sila, samadhi, panya. This is, Vipassana goes through all 3.
Thank you, Ajahn, very much. I will change my practice.
Okay, we have another question that's very interesting. From Brother Dujun, right? Okay, he asked that, when the Thai forest tradition recite the Buddho while practice Anapanasati? It is the Samadhi or Vipassana practice or both? Thank you.
The answer is it's samatha practice. This is my answer. Or someone else might give a different answer. But I think I should say something. I'll try to be brief and not get into too much detail, but I'd like your follow-up point, because it's different to say Buddho when practicing Anapanasati than it is to just reciting Buddha or Buddho. And here's how it's different. Well, I don't really experientially know how it's different because I've never practiced either. But going by the texts, which we should, it's important to appreciate your own practice, no question. But it's also important to be humble and understand that your own practice may not be perfect. Your own understanding, even if you are an arahant, even an arahant's understanding is not perfect. And if you're not an arahant, all the more reason to be humble and understand that the tradition says certain things about meditation practice. And it's not just tradition. I can also say from secondhand experience, what I've seen in others. So what I'm getting at, here's the issue. If you say to yourself, Buddho, and you're contemplating that quality of the Buddha, it's complicated because the Buddha is a concept, but that quality of mind is technically an ultimate reality. So I don't think that really matters. I think a person who practices Buddho is much more likely to give rise to samatha, to give rise to samatha, tranquility, than they are to actually get vipassana, because they're focused on a quality of mind. Because you don't focus on that quality of mind, you focus on the conceptual idea of a person who knows, right? Buddho, pulu. That's orthodox. That's Buddhist, Theravada Buddhist practice. When a person, and this is going to be controversial what I'm going to say now, but it shouldn't be. It may reflect my lack of understanding. I might be ignorant. So take this with it. This is my idea, and I might be wrong, but it's what I've thought, and I'll give some reason why I feel confident saying it. 2 reasons. When you say to yourself, Buddho, and you focus on the breath, you're no longer practicing orthodox meditation. You're no longer practicing Theravada meditation practice. You're mixing 2 techniques, right? I think you've kind of picked up on that because of your second point. When a person focuses on Anapanasati and says, Buddho, I'm not quite sure what they're doing. And so that's my first reason for questioning it, is because the texts don't support it, as far as I know. I've read the Visuddhimagga, we've studied the Visuddhimagga. That text doesn't support it, as far as I can see. But the second thing, and this is even more interesting and probably more controversial as well. When you start mixing techniques, there is at least the potential for mixing results, for confused results. There are teachers, practitioners, let's say, of Buddho, who begin, in my mind, to confuse the breath and the knowing of the breath with Buddha. And so they will say, Puru, the one who knows, is this knowing of the breath. And if you focus Buddho, Buddho long enough, there will only be the one who knows. And if you listen to them talk or read what they've said, I'm concerned that they've actually fallen into atta, the idea of self, puru. And it's because of, in my mind, this confusion. I've heard this. And that conclusion comes also from seeing another similar tradition that you might not have realized is actually quite similar. And that is watching imagining a crystal. Many of you know what I'm talking about, right? Imagining a crystal coming down to your center of gravity.
Yes.
And saying to yourself, Samma Arahang. Samma Arahang. Again, mixing two valid meditation techniques, but mixing them in a way that I don't think they should be mixed. And the result is similar in some cases. Now, in all cases, it is certainly possible for these to be valid meditation techniques and for a person to become even enlightened based on this sort of practice. But it's not going to be because of the practice per se. And it's much more likely, I think, for the practice to create complicated results, confused results. And so as a result, you hear and read about people who practice this coming up with new theories and new ideas. Nibbana is atta, which some of you may have heard was being thrown around. The idea that the mind is this big and it exists at the center of gravity, because it's you're complicating things by bringing together two meditation techniques in a way that they aren't related. You're creating a connection that isn't there, right? At least if you say in one, out one, in two, out two, there's a connection. The numbers are conceptual, but it is true. This is the first in-breath. This is the second in-breath. There's a connection. It's simple, right? But to introduce Buddha into your breath, Samma Arahang or Buddho, complicates it. And the results, from what I can see as an outsider, are complicated and confused in my mind and unorthodox. And so there's a danger there. It's not true that, it's not necessarily true that it's always going to be like that and that they can't be used for great good. I mean, I think in general, meditation, even like that, is generally good, but on a deep level, it seems to create some wrong view, potentially, or foster or encourage or harbor wrong view. So that wasn't quite your question, but your question of whether they are samatha or vipassana, it's a difficult one. And I would say qualified, they're all still in the realm of samatha. Because ask yourself, are any of them focused on an ultimate reality, on an experience? Even anapanasati is borderline. Because if you're focused on breath going in, that's not the actual experience. It's conceptual. If you think of in, nothing's going in. That's not what you're experiencing. That's how you conceive it. The reality is the heat or the coolness at the nose, the feeling in the throat, which arises and ceases here, arises and ceases at the chest, arises and ceases at the stomach. If you focus on those, then anapanasati in and of itself can be vipassana. I mean, I think what we do, watch the stomach rising and falling, could be called anapanasati, but it's also vipassana because it's focused on the ultimate reality, the four elements, the tension in the stomach. But why I say qualified is because it's really not worth mentioning, but technically the qualities of the Buddha are technically ultimate realities, right? Because they're qualities of mind, but they're not really. That's not how people practice it. That's not how anyone really practices it. So you're not really likely to give rise to Vipassana as a result of focusing on the qualities of the Buddha.
Okay, thank you so much,ท่านอาจารย์ยุทธธรรมโม. Unfortunately, that we have short time, and I do believe that everyone get the knowledge and useful technique about our practicing insight meditation and also samatha kamatana as well, the difference and the knowledge. And at the end of the session, so I would like to invite a representative of our students to say thank you toท่านอาจารย์ยุทธธรรมโม at the end of the session. So please.
Ajahn, we are very honored today with your presence with us. Kindly accept our gratitude, respect, and deep appreciation for this wonderful treasure of Dharma knowledge we have received from Ajahn, for shedding lights and straightening views on various issues relating to meditation experiences and practices. Thank you. And also, we would like to express our gratitude and respect to Ajahn Virasa and IPSC for organizing today's session. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, and honored that I was invited, that Tan Maha invited me directly. That's very kind and thoughtful, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. Doing a question and answer period seems more appropriate because I don't know any of you, so I don't know what to teach you. But when you ask questions, then I know what to teach, then I know what you want to learn. So
Document our problems and issues.
if you have a topic that you want me to talk for longer on, then I could. But it seems that asking questions is quite valuable. So thank you for the opportunity, for inviting me.
Next time we will inviteท่านอาจารย์ to share knowledge once again. Next time.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you so much for your kindness. So at the end of the session, please everyone turn on your camera and then we'll take photo group together. Okay. Okay, start from first page 1, 2. And the second page 1, 2. And third page 1, 2. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much, everyone, and also thank you so much,ท่านอาจารย์ยุทธธรรมโม once again.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Satu, Satu. Please never forget to register your name in the chat box that I sent the link. Okay. See you next time. Ajahn. ครับ Satu ครับ
Thank you very much.
Recording stopped.